So the Vols have always been known as a program that rakes in the cash and spends it. The Vols revenue ranked number 18 nationally and eighth in the SEC for 2021-2022. This according to USA Today. Well, what the H? That seems really low to me. Back when I was covering it on a full-time basis and we would dig these numbers up at the end of every fiscal year, which usually happens in June, Tennessee was always top 5. So for them to be number 18 really surprises me. Number 1, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, Penn State, Oklahoma, Auburn, Michigan State, Indiana, Virginia, Florida State, Kentucky, Clemson, and then Tennessee. What surprises you about that list, or what surprises you about the amount of money spent at other schools? Because to give you an idea, a total revenue at Ohio State was $251 million. Okay. At Tennessee, it was $154 million. That's $100 million deficit. That to me is a big, big, big deal. What do you think?
Yes, it's a huge deal, and it's a bigger deal than you think. Because we got the report back in February that Tennessee's athletic budget operated at a loss for 2021-2022. Nobody really panicked over that because it was the year after COVID, so you just had some things coming in. And on top of that, Tennessee had projects that were put on hold that they couldn't do during COVID that they did during the past year. So their expenses went way out of whack, which we all expected. You expected the expenses to go out of whack. You didn't expect the revenue itself. This isn't profit. The revenue to be so low. And so the revenue to be at $154.6 million when, again, every other school on that list also came out of COVID. And some of them being in other conferences that didn't have football the way the SEC did during COVID should have operated at a bigger loss. The only thing I could surmise is, so Tennessee's non-revenue generating sports apparently did not do as well in the 2021-2022 academic calendar. Is a bit disturbing on its own because Tennessee's supposed to be the best at drawing for its non-revenue producing sports. And the only thing I could maybe say is to not be concerned about is, remember, season tickets for that year for football, the revenue driver, probably weren't that high because nobody knew what to expect of Heupel. He was an underwhelming hire coming off a 3-7 program. I think apathy, before Josh Heupel's first year, I don't think apathy was any worse than it was during that particular moment. So I think I will reserve judgment and wait till 2022, 2023, and maybe even this year, 2023, 2024. We're seeing how Tennessee's selling out with season tickets. I think you'll see a really, really big spike there because, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest driver of anything in revenue is football season ticket holders, right?
Absolutely. I think Tennessee will be in the top 8 or so when this list comes out next year. The teams that are going to be there year in and year out is Ohio State, Texas, for sure, because there's so much money there. Ohio State is the thing in Ohio. I've had friends that work there. It's not the Bengals. It's not the Browns. Ohio State is the thing when it comes to sports. It's not the Reds. It is the thing. Much like Tennessee, the University of Tennessee is the thing in this state. Texas being number 2 doesn't surprise me. They've got a ton of money. Alabama being at $214 million, one of only 5 teams above the 200 million mark, is because of Nick Saban. I mean, their revenue has gone up tremendously because of a long-term impact of Nick Saban. So I'm not saying the bottom's going to drop out when he retires, but it will come back a little bit more to normal. Michigan has an interesting group of people that want to get back to the football program. It's not like, and they're a highly regarded university, but it's not like Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt just wants to get back to the academics. Georgia, I think the same thing as Alabama. They have seen a significant bump because of Kirby Smart. LSU surprised me just a little bit, but they're the only thing in that state as well. Texas A&M is going to compete with Texas. Again, oil money. Florida surprised me at number 8. Penn
Well, remember
State.
this with Florida.
Say again.
Remember this with Florida. This was 2021. Heading into 2021, Florida had won the East in 2020, supplanted Georgia. There was a big belief that Dan Mullen was about to take the next step in 2021. So I bet they had a ton of season ticket sales ahead of that year.
Great point. Penn State in at number 9, Oklahoma at number 10, Auburn at number 11, Michigan State at number 12. Remember, Michigan State, this would be coming off the Mel Tucker fantastic year. Indiana is really surprising, but that's not because of football, but that's because of basketball. Virginia at 15 is a little surprising to me as well. Florida State, I think they got serious about football after they realized Jimbo Fisher left them with a mess. Kentucky at 16, a lot of that's basketball. Clemson at 17 surprised me, and then you get to Tennessee at 18. So what's a realistic goal now that we've already heard Tennessee crow about the fact that season tickets are sold out and that everything seems to be going well with NIL? But what is a realistic goal with Tennessee next year? I think it's to be top 10. I think it's to be right at the $200 million mark. They're at 158. And these numbers are very important, but they're not the only number anymore. That used to be the only number. Okay. The other number that some of this money is getting taken away from is what? It's on a NIL. It's collectives. So if Tennessee comes to me and they say, we need you to spend $100 million this year, they may very well say, we want you to spend 80 in refurbishing all of the facilities and making sure that everything's going good. But we would like for you to spend 20 on NIL money. So is that factored in? No, NIL money is private money. They don't have to report that to anybody. These are public figures via FOIA. So I wonder too if Tennessee takes a dent in their reported numbers because they're giving more to NIL, which
The boosters.
really is the same thing. Does that make sense?
No, that's a very good point. Something I didn't even think about, but you're right. I mean, Dave, from what you heard on the inside, I think you and I have heard the same thing, right? Tennessee's been willing to just outbid anybody for transfers, haven't they? Their boosters have opened up the checkbook pretty much to get guys they want to get.
They don't get Dante Thornton if they're not willing, from what I'm told, if they're not willing to pay big time dollars.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm hearing too. And you're right, that throws things for a loop a little bit with NIL. And I don't think Ohio State or LSU or Georgia would need to spend as much on NIL, or Alabama for that matter, because Alabama can sell Nick Saban and will get you to the NFL. LSU and Georgia and Ohio State have the locational advantage. Ohio kids want to go to Ohio State. Louisiana kids want to go to LSU. Georgia kids mostly want to go to Georgia. So they don't really have to open the checkbook for their in-state recruit. They don't have to open the checkbook as much for the recruits they want as Tennessee does, because Tennessee has to recruit nationally. So they have to go to California and get a kid, or Oregon and get a kid.
If I'm Jim Haslam, and somebody calls me and they say, hey, we need you to give $20 million this year. And I'm just making up a number. And they say, we also need you to give $5 million in NIL money. Okay. I'm going to say, whoa. Just give me one tab. You know, when I go to a restaurant, I don't get a check for my appetizer, my main meal, and my dessert. Just give me one tab. Let me know what you need. And then we'll negotiate that number. And I can write 2 different checks if you want me to. Okay. But at the end of the day, this is the number I'm giving to the University of Tennessee in hopes that they have success. If 2 million of that 20 million or 10 million of that 20 million is NIL money, that's part of your tab. That's what I'm giving you. Don't come to me and ask for $20 million and 3 months later say we need this guy. Maybe you've heard about him. His name is Nico. And we need $4 million more dollars. Don't ask me that. I mean, I might give it to you if he comes out of nowhere, but if I've already cut you a check for $20 million, I don't know that I'm going to cut you a check for $4 million more just because you asked for it. You need to do a better job of bookkeeping, right?
Oh, I agree. That I never thought about that, but this is going to make accounting and book accountants for universities is going to be a very, very, very in demand job at this point, because they're going to have to separate this stuff out at some point.
Well, and this number is not as big as it used to be, and it's probably never going to be, because it was like 150 million last time I checked it, and that was 10 years ago. So it's probably going to come down a little bit. But the bottom line is, let me give everybody a quick insight into how this works. So basically, aside from your emergency fund, you have to spend all of this money to be a, air quotes, nonprofit. Okay. So they are an, air quotes, nonprofit, which we all know it's a business, but they have to spend pretty much all of this money or put it into a fund, an emergency fund. So you might see this number go down because more are going to collectives. I'm a little surprised it's 180 million. By the way, Travis says you see orange everywhere. They're just hiding the cheese. It's absolutely right. And the most popular color of thongs at Bonnaroo was, guess what color?
Orange, I would assume.
By far. No idea why, but there were a lot of orange thongs. I didn't ask everyone if they were Tennessee fans because my wife would have gotten mad and they would have been creeped out by the old guy. But there were a lot of orange thongs at Bonnaroo.
Where I was,
doesn't even know where to go with that.
No, where I was, they were usually green. Funny enough, intriguingly.
Where
this was at Moonrise.
So was it in Lansing, Michigan?
No, Preakness. Where Preakness is held, they have a EDM festival every year called Moonrise, and it's on the track. And typically was green there. It was green at Firefly too. So, yeah.
How long do you think it took me before I saw my first thong with my daughter?
Wait, what?
No. She wasn't a thong. She's 20. But I want to take her to see. So how long do you think it took me to see the first inappropriate thing at Bonnaroo?
Oh, they wear them in the hotels coming out. I mean, it probably didn't take you that long at all.
We didn't get through the gate is the answer. We didn't get through the parking pass gate before I saw an orange thong with a lady who probably should not have been wearing an orange thong. Tennessee's all-time coaching staff coming up. We're assembling one, and we want your input. What coach has to be on the all-time coaching staff for the Vols? So here's what we're gonna do, Caleb. I've broken it down. We're gonna pick an offensive coordinator. We're gonna pick a defensive coordinator. We're gonna pick two recruiters, 2 position coaches. So we don't have to go offensive line, defensive line, blah, blah, blah. We're going to fit those guys in because it's just football. How complicated can it be? So, and then we're going to pick a head coach. And I'm curious who your head coach is going to be, because only a couple have won a national title. I guess Butch Jones is still out there. You loved Butch Jones, didn't you? Or was that Barrett Sallee? Oh, you're a Derek Dooley guy.
Oh, man, Dave. Do we need to talk about some of the coaches? Says the guy who's hardly giving to Brian Kelly.
Barrett did not respond to a text to be on the show, so I wonder if he's heard about the repeated affection that he has for Butch Jones, which was a little bit misplaced.